Just wanted to give a shout out to all the nice guys out there who might be struggling to find themselves actually having the quality of relationship that they want. Those nice guys in that friend zone, as we like to call it. Robert and I have been talking about this a lot, and we wanted to share some of our thoughts with you.
Yeah, gonna get right in there. So we're gonna talk about nice guys and dating today. Anybody out there a nice guy? Raise your hand. I'm a nice guy. I'll raise my hand. Yeah, love those nice guys. We're gonna talk a little bit about some of the dynamics of what nice guys bring to dating, and some of the pieces that work well for nice guys, and some of the pieces that don't work well for nice guys, and that don't work well for the women around them. And what we want to start off with sharing a little bit about is the way that nice guys are so nice. Like, we're really good at being nice, right? We're really respectful to women. We care a lot about women. Most nice guys, we're really good at connecting with women on a heart level, and bringing the empathy and bringing the softness and bringing the compassion. And the you know that's great. Those are really important and positive benefits, and that quality of heart is really needed in the world. The thing that we find that happens over and over again, we talk to a lot of these dudes, this has definitely been me in the past, is that a lot of nice guys find themselves ending up in what's called the friend zone. And the friend zone is a place where a guy is into a woman, and he basically just, like, things never get to the place where they're romantic or sexual. Like, on some level he desires a deeper, richer, sexier connection, but it doesn't go there, it doesn't end up there, and they just become friends. And the result there is that there's like a level of frustration. And why don't you pick it up from here, Joshua? Share a little bit about what happens when nice guys end up into the friend zone.
Well, yeah, and I want to say it's not just guys who don't get the dates. You can end up in the friend zone in your relationship, right? Like, you can crush the polarity by being the nice guy in your relationship just as easily as you can crush it before
Yeah.
you ever get into some kind
Yeah.
of romantic relationship.
And we
Right?
definitely have
So
had these kinds of guys.
if you're in a relationship and you're being the nice guy, all of this applies to you too on some level. But let's talk specifically about the experience, the inner experience of the guys who are the nice guys who end up in that friend zone. Because what they end up feeling is frustrated. They're frustrated that they can't seem to bridge the gap between that connection, that like level of emotional intimacy with a woman, and the kind of like juicy romantic sexual experience that they want to be having. And they find themselves hitting this wall again and again with women, and it builds up a sense of resentment, right? It builds up a sense of frustration. And some of these guys, they feel resentful, they're frustrated, they become the confidant of a woman, but they don't get more of what they want in terms of sex, right? And I want to call out the sort of subtle manipulation that goes on here, because essentially the program goes, if I get close enough to her, maybe she'll want to sex me, right? And in order to get close to her, you shut down your sex. You become the safe guy who doesn't have any dangerous feelings for this woman or any dangerous desire. And that's how you get close, right? So there's a paradox here. And in shutting that down, you become a non-option.
I want to jump in for just a moment to say that, like, this part was like a slap in the face when I realized how I did this years ago, because so much of the nice guy identity is, I'm a nice guy, I'm not being manipulative, I'm being loving, and I'm being kind, I'm being respectful to women. And the idea that, no, actually, like, there are these places where you're actually being really manipulative, where you're hiding and obscuring and like doing something else sneaky over here in order to try to get what you want over here. This is a big wake-up call for a lot of nice guys.
Totally. So in the name of saying things that you might not want to hear and pointing at things you might not want to look at in yourself, right? What this process gives rise to is a sense of resentment. You're kind of, some part of you may be angry at women. So I want to invite you through this video to let this roll around in you, to check in on any part of yourself, if you are frustrated with your results with women, the part of you that might be resentful, right? The part of you that might be like, you know, fuck you for using me as an emotional crutch without being willing to consider me a real option for relationship and intimacy. And, you know, there's even a part that's like, you hear these women talking about like, where are all the good men? And you're like, fuck you, I'm right here while you're going out and dating the abusive asshole again. And while you're over here like crying to me about the abusive asshole. And so like women don't want a good man. They want to want a good man, and they keep going after shitty dudes, abusive guys, while I'm over here totally lonely and there for them in ways that their boyfriends aren't, right? Does this sound at all familiar to some part of your unconscious? If it doesn't, I hope that you'll take a really sincere look inside of yourself, really check in on this level, because finding that part of you and making it conscious may be one of the keys to you getting out of the friend zone and out of this loop of frustration and resentment around women.
Yeah. And so what Joshua is speaking to here is, you know, there's the frustration around not being able to get, there's like a whole spectrum of the human, of the human interaction that's missing in these relationships with women that we want. There's a frustration there. The whole realm of sexual connection is not available to us. And that's painful, and it's frustrating, and it's difficult. Joshua was speaking to the resentment that can underlie the nice guy paradigm. I want to go a layer deeper and say that what I find often, if not always, with nice guys is that the even deeper layer there is a layer of fear. It's a layer of fear around our relationship to anger, our willingness to even admit that we're angry, to even admit that there's resentment going on, to even admit that I might have judgments toward women when on the surface I'm such a nice guy and I'm so loving and respectful, right? There's fear to acknowledge to myself, firstly, that these paradigms are going on inside, that these emotions live inside of me. And then there's fear about ever revealing that side of myself to the world. And so, you know, ultimately this core piece that we find drives nice guys is fear of being honest, fear of being authentic, fear, and oftentimes, you know, really well placed, in certain ways, very well placed fears that I could hurt people. If I let these parts out, I could hurt people. And in some ways, you know, pretty, I say this with no judgment, but very selfish motivations. If I let this out, then people would think X, Y, and Z things about me. They would think I'm a creep. They would think I'm one of those assholes that I judge so much, you know. So, you know, what happens when we acknowledge this layer of fear? What happens when we start to acknowledge these energies, this anger, this frustration, this resentment that's stored up inside of us, is we start to unhide ourselves. Like these layers of suffering that we have created for ourselves, they begin to dissipate, and we begin to actually show up in the world as an authentic man, as a guy who's not hiding these different parts of himself. Your unwillingness to admit that you're angry is the source of your pain. So the source of your freedom is going to be your willingness to go in and do this inner work and really choose honesty, right?
Yeah, verbal and energetic honesty. And again, this is uncapping some superpowers in your nervous system. Your anger is very much connected to your power in the world, and so is your sex. And if you're shutting down your anger and you're shutting down your sexuality in attempts to get close to women, the exquisitely energetically sensitive female body is going to pick up on that instantaneously, and you are going to become untrustworthy to her, right? You're just going to keep that cycle going, and you don't have access to all this fucking power in your nervous system. You lose access to all this creativity and generativity in your body, right? And so finding the safe spaces for you to be able to make contact with that anger, to express that anger, to stop holding that back is going to be critical to you becoming fully congruent with yourself. Because if you don't have anywhere in your life where you can get angry, then you're fucked, man. And this goes for everybody.
Yeah.
If you don't have anywhere in your life to really get angry and feel that and express that, then you're probably making yourself sick on some level of your life, whether it's in your relationships, whether it's in your business and finances, whether it's in your physical body, like some part of you, or whether it's in your mind, some part of you is not well as a result of not having any safe, healthy spaces to express things like rage and sexual passion, to be in your desire, to express your desire, to be congruent with it, right?
Yeah. I want to jump in for a quick moment, but, and again, all of this is predicated upon the simple acknowledgement that I have anger living inside of me. When I started getting conscious around my anger and consciously doing my work around anger, there literally were moments. I was dating a woman back then. There literally were moments where the best that I could get at my anger was, I think I might be angry right now. I was so numbed out from my anger that was, I would stop and I would say to myself, and occasionally verbally to her, I think I might be angry right now. I was that disconnected from my anger. And as that connection comes back online, then, these are the kinds of spaces that absolutely are required, that Joshua is talking about, in order to allow it to come fully back online.
Exactly. And by these, we mean one of those spaces being our Men's Leadership Intensive, which we just had the most beautiful, quintessential experience with a man at our last Men's Leadership Intensive. We'll call him Chris, right? And when Chris showed up at this intensive, he could barely look you in the eye. He was hunched over. His head was constantly cocked slightly downward, right? He was the last person to speak, even when invited to speak. He took up as little space in the room as possible. And he was super tentative, super underconfident. When he would speak, he would come out kind of stammering. He was apologetic. He looked and felt like a broken man when he walked into that Men's Leadership Intensive. And over the course of that journey, in which there is a lot of room for a man to have exactly what feelings he's having. There's a lot of space, and some very intentional space devoted to men making contact with their anger and expressing it in a really safe environment, more fully than you have probably ever expressed your anger before, more powerfully. And not just as a form of expression, but to get to what it is that you really want to protect, what you want to create in your life, the preciousness of who you are, the reason that anger arises, to protect this beautiful human being that is you, and the ways that it didn't get to arise when you were a small child and people were doing things to you, shaming you and controlling you in ways that didn't feel right to you, but you didn't have the power to react, and you knew that being angry would just make it worse, right? We've all got some level of this conditioning in us. And so it's important to have spaces that are consciously constructed like this to be able to express anger. And when Chris made his way through that crucible, dude, Robert, I mean, please tell us what this man was like on the other side of that.
I feel a little bit hyperbolic as I'm about to say the words that I'm about to say, but literally it was a night and day difference. This guy was walking out. He was standing tall. It wasn't like overly puffed out, but his chest was full. He looked beautiful. This man looked gorgeous. There was a clarity and a presence in his eyes, and like a softness to his face, where before there had been just a really downtrodden look. This man, he just felt soft, but he felt firm, and he looked gorgeous. This is one of the things that we go deep into in our Authentic Dating Secrets program also, is that when guys do this kind of inner work, they automatically become more attractive and magnetic. And it is these kind of seeming subtleties of our physiology, the way that we hold tension or like contraction in our bodies, and when that tension and contraction gets let go, there's a man who's just present, grounded, relaxed, and soft. And he was joking. he was just fluid, he was present, and he 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 was a sexy man. He walked in a beaten man and he walked out a dead sexy man. And I'm not exaggerating at all. Again, I feel a little bit hyperbolic, but it was a night and day difference.
It was a night and day difference, radical. And he would tell you the exact same thing. It was huge. He was speaking up. He was volunteering his opinion. He wasn't waiting to be the one to be asked about something, to speak up. All of these things just.
And the tone of his voice too.
Yeah.
Voices get stronger. They go from like soft and weak to clear and full and present. They can fill
dropped
up
a little deeper, got a little louder. Yep. And this is what happens when we actually make authentic contact with our rage. This is what happens when we reactivate the part of ourselves that can really actually stand up for our values and what matters to us, that's willing to take risks, that's willing to put itself on the line for what matters to us. And we start to believe in ourselves again, because when we stuff all of these emotions down, we just start running programs that have us compromising left and right in our lives, and it's no good for anybody. Everybody loses when you're in the state of compromise. And none of this, as we make fun of the nice guy, none of this is to make fun of genuine kindness, of sincere gentleness and compassion. Like, all of those are incredibly important traits. Nice, I think, is bullshit. Nice actually refers to a performance of a certain kind rather than the genuine article. And nobody who doesn't know how to be angry and stand up for themselves can be truly, genuinely kind and generous.
Yeah, and that's
always some kind of affront.
That's an important distinction. The distinction between nice and kind is, there's a massive difference between the two.
Absolutely. So I hope that somewhere along the way we've offered something confronting for you to look at in this video. Anybody who watches, I encourage you to take a look at your resentment of the opposite sex, why you're resenting them, the anger that you harbor for them, and the ways that may be unexpressed in your life. And find safe places. Find a friend or a confidant, at the very least, who just say, hey, can you just witness me while I just fully express how angry I am about this? And then just let yourself go, let yourself scream, let yourself throw your arms about, even punch a pillow, because expressing and really touching into these emotions is an essential part of our humanity, and it makes everything, it's like lubricant for the rest of our lives. It makes everything go better. And
for the guy who looks at his life and doesn't see those kinds of spaces, he's not surrounded with those kinds of men or women, or just he doesn't have those kinds of spaces. They're available, they're out there. That's what Joshua and I are dedicated to creating in the Brotherhood community, in Authentic Dating Secrets. It's what my life on a personal level is dedicated to creating for men. There are plenty of other options out there than just us. There are groups all over the world doing this kind of work, providing these kinds of spaces for guys to inhabit their power. And this is a quality of power that's not power over. This is a power where I get to show up in the world and make the kind of difference that I'm actually meant to make, where I'm not letting the dribbles of my good-heartedness come out of the faucet. I'm a fucking fire hose of love, and I'm a fire hose of change. And that ultimately is what we get to be in the world when we really do this work. And the quality of our relationships just shoots through the roof. Quality of our sex shoots through the roof. Our magneticness, our attractiveness, it just goes to whole other levels. So the benefits are pretty, they're yeah.
Glorious, magnificent, glorious, beautiful, ubiquitous.
And there's many of them.
And I'll also say that it turns out, Robert, that you and me are going to be speaking to men just like this in a live event in Oakland on the 17th of March.
Yeah, for the man or woman who's listening to this live or close to live, March, what was the date again?
17th.
March 17th in the Bay Area, 2020. We're going to be doing some deep work with dudes. It's called Ignite Your Man Mojo. This workshop is epic. We have run it before, and you can't even imagine the difference between guys who come in at hour 0 and when they leave at hour 3. Really profound to step into that kind of a space with other guys who are also there to unhide themselves and to come into more honesty and authenticity with themselves and with the rest of the world.
Absolutely. great place to get your full expression on. It's going to be an epic, intense, beautiful container for all those raw feelings in such a good, safe way. And going to walk out of there just feeling lit up, charged up, just like Chris did after the MLI.
Yep.
And hope to see you there for those local Bay Area peeps. Thank you, friends.
Yeah. So leave a comment. How did any of this land for you? Did it resonate? Did it not resonate? Women, we would love to hear from you. Dudes, did we get you? Did we miss you? Do you hate us? Are you like, oh, fuck, they nailed me? Leave a comment. We would love to hear back. And I also just want to mention that I have a video that I filmed a couple of years ago on anger that any person who's listening to this that found it engaging and interesting might be well served to watch. It's basically me talking about the importance and the beauty and the trustworthiness of anger. So I'll post a link to that below. Take a look at that if you want. And thank you for being with us. We'll talk to you next week.
Ahoy, mateys.